start off with absolutely the rudimentary level for economics and the first and the foremost part, which will basically form the basis for many more parts of microeconomics. We start off with consumer behavior, and quite literally, what we will be studying is how a consumer behaves when he goes out in the market to buy goods and services. So we consider a very simple economy in order to analyze the behavior of a consumer. We consider a world with only two goods. Let the two goods be X and Y. And in the market, there is a price of X and Y called PX and PY. And each consumer is endowed or has a money income of the level M. Okay. So we consider a very simple economy with two goods, X and Y. On the face of it, it might seem to be not a very realistic economy, not a very realistic scenario. Believe me, it is more realistic than it sounds. You may choose X as any one commodity. Say X is potato, okay, and the other commodity Y is everything else combined. So you spend your money on potato and everything else. So Y can be everything else. Ice cream, a laptop, okay, headphone, everything combined is the good Y. Okay. So very simplistic scenario. Everything, the expenditure on everything else is Y. Okay. And X is potato. So a two good world can also represent all the goods that we actually buy in our daily lives. Okay. So we consider a world with only two goods. The prices of the two goods are PX and PY, and you have money in your pocket M. Okay. Now the consumer, how he behaves will be determined by two aspects. First aspect is the money that you have in your pocket, which I call the means to buying the goods X and Y. The means is nothing but your income. And the other aspect, which will determine how much a consumer buys for X and Y, is the preferences of the consumer. Okay. Preferences basically means what he likes more to which bundle. Okay. You and I may have the same amount of money. Supposing you and I have, both of us have a 2000 rupee note in our pockets. Okay. You may choose to spend the 2000 in a different manner, and I may choose to spend the 2000 in a different manner, right? In what manner do we choose to spend this 2000 rupees depends on the bundles that we prefer. So I might prefer a Coke over an ice cream, whereas you may prefer an ice cream over a Coke. Agreed? So our preferences determine over and above the money income how much of X and Y we will be consuming ultimately. Okay. So the first aspect is to identify what are the bundles that are possible for a consumer to buy, looking at the income. And the other aspect is looking at the preferences. Both of these combine and they give us the ultimate X and Y quantity that the consumer will be purchasing from the market. Okay. So we consider a very simple model. You cannot influence the prices that are already prevailing in the market. So the prices are out of your control, and the money income that you have is also out of your control for this model. Okay. It is assumed that you have a particular money income in your pocket. Okay. So I'm not actually going into the effort made and the money made. I am assuming that you have made an effort and you have already got a certain money income in your pocket, which is outside the purview of this model. In this model, the prices and the money income are given to us. Okay. It is also called exogenously given, or these three px, py and m are variables which are exogenous to the model. Exogenous meaning हमें वो बाहर से मिला है values, ये मॉडल से डिटरमाइन हम लोग नहीं करेंगे. We will not be finding out the values of px, py and m from the model. From the consumer behavior model, it is our task only to find out the optimal values of x and y that the consumer will choose. And the prices and the money income are given to us as inputs, right? Yesterday we did the functions. Okay, so px, py and m are the independent variable, or they form the domain, and the output is the optimal x and y which forms the codomain. Am I understandable? Input px, py and m input है, output निकलेगा ये मॉडल से optimal x and y for the consumer. समझ में आया सबको? तो सबसे पहले we will be talking about the means or the income of the consumer. Okay, so we'll firstly be looking at the means or the income, and then after that we will be going into the preference part of it. Okay, so let's talk about the money income of the consumer or the means of the consumer. Okay, quite logically, the entire money income that the consumer has in their pocket will have to be greater than equal to the expenditure that the consumer is going to make. What is the expenditure that the consumer will make? The entire expenditure will be x into the price of x plus y into the price of y. That is the expenditure that the consumer will make. So the expenditure has to be less than or equal to the money income that I have in my pocket. Logical? समझ में आया सबको? Then please raise your hand. Till now, I hope all of you are with me. If you are with me, please raise your hand so that I can actually understand that आपको समझ में आ रहा है whatever I am sharing with you till now. Okay. So this is my means or the budget line or the budget set. Okay, so this inequality gives us something called the budget set. Now what is the budget set? Budget set, let's put it in a diagram format so that all of you are able to understand what is the budget set. If I equate m is equal to xpx plus ypy, this will give us the x-intercept as m by px and the y-intercept as m by py. This is class 8 or 9 to find out the intercepts of a straight line. Okay, so that's how we do it. X by the intercept plus y by the intercept is equal to 1. Okay, so the x-intercept is m by px and the y-intercept is m by py. So that's what we do here. We draw a straight line, y-intercept m by py, x-intercept m by px, which is very logical as well. If I don't buy any y and if I spend everything on my x, how much of x will I be able to buy? My entire money income divided by the price of x. Similarly, if I choose to purchase only y, I will be able to buy m by py amount of y and 0 amount of x. So basically, this inequality m greater than equal to x px plus y py, this gives us this shaded area as all the xy points or xy bundles which the consumer can afford to buy. Okay, obviously I am making a very logical assumption here that x and y are positive. Obviously I can't consume -1 amount of coke or -2 amount of ice cream. Does not make any sense. So x and y, the bundle that you ultimately buy from the market, is obviously non-negative. It can be equal to 0 and it can be positive. Okay, so if you remember linear programming, this is what we used to do with a constraint. So if you consider the m greater than equal to xpx plus ypy as a constraint that we used to deal with in LPP problems, if you try to graph this, you'll get a line like this, and you'll get this shaded area as the area where the constraint is satisfied. Okay, and this shaded area is called the budget set. Okay, budget set constitutes all XY bundles that are affordable given the prices and the money income. Correct? All the XY bundles that the consumer can buy given the money income and the prices constitute the budget set. Okay. Another thing, budget line. Budget line is what? All income exhausting XY bundles constitute the budget line. तो यहां पर in this example, what will be the budget line? The budget line is this. Let me use a different color, red. This red, can all of you see it? This red part, this is the budget line. All XY combinations that are affordable given that I exhaust my entire money income. So M is equal to Px, X, Px plus Y, Py. This will give me the budget line. And M greater than equal to X, Px plus Y, Py will give me the budget set. समझ में आया सबको? If it is understandable, please raise your hand. So the budget set are all XY bundles that are affordable given the prices and the money income. Budget line are all the income exhausting XY bundles that the consumer can buy. ठीक है? Okay with everyone? Budget set, budget line समझ में आया सबको? अगर समझ में आया, then please raise your hands. If it is understandable, please raise your hand. This is absolutely the basics. Okay? Right. Another thing is slope of the budget line. Okay, M is equal to XPX plus YPY. Only thing variable in the consumer behavior simple model is X and Y. So if I differentiate this entirely, I will get 0 is equal to Px dx plus Py dy. Now, obviously, the budget line is in the XY space. So the slope of the budget line will be dy dx, which is equal to minus Px by Py. And this is the slope of the budget line. So what is the slope of the budget line here? The slope of the budget line is minus Px by Py. Okay. In books, in ISI DSE problems, they might give you that the slope of the budget line is equal to 1 by 3. They can easily give you, assume that the slope of the budget line is equal to 1 by 3. Don't take this in a literal fashion that it is equal to plus 1 by 3 and then make the budget line positively sloped. No. If they mention in the problem that the slope of the budget line is equal to 1 by 3, you will draw a negatively sloped budget line with a slope of minus 1 by 3. Okay. Normally, budget lines are expressed in absolute values. The slope of the budget line is expressed in absolute values. So don't get confused by this. I might also say this. Let the slope of the budget line be equal to 1 by 2. 1 by 2, what I mean is minus 1 by 2. but it is an accepted terminology that whenever I talk about the budget line in terms of a positive slope, I'm talking about the absolute value of the budget line. Okay, so don't get confused with this, that sir, but plus 1 by 2 means it is positively sloped. How are you doing this in a negative manner? Don't take it in such a literal fashion. Okay, be a little more accommodative in your brain. Am I understandable? So you will experience this all the time when it comes to ISI DSC problems and in books, unless specifically mentioned that the price of a good is negative. How is the price of a good negative? The price of a good can be negative if I buy it and I get paid for it. Also, I get paid for a good when I buy it. Okay, which is uh, not at all a common scenario. It can be there, but it is not at all common. Okay, chalo, theek hai. So budget line understandable, slope of the budget line also understandable, budget set also understandable. ठीक है? Anything that you want to ask at this point of time, I will be happy to clarify. कुछ भी पूछना है तो पूछिए. Anything to ask? Nothing. Okay, great. So let's do this. Let's go into a few budget line problems. Okay, to make your concept crystal clear. Let's do a few problems. So this is DSC 2019 question number 25. Your budget is such that if you spend your entire income, you can afford either 4 units of good X and 6 units of good Y. So my money income is such that I can afford either 4 units of good X and 6 units of good Y. That is how I can write it down: 4 into PX plus 6 into PY. Or I can afford 12 units of good X and 2 units of good Y. Okay. What is the ratio of the price of X to the price of Y? Just equate the two. 4px plus 6py is equal to 12px plus 2py. So 4py is equal to 8px, or 4 by 8 is equal to half is equal to px by py. So what is the ratio of the price of X to the price of Y? Half. Can't get more easier than this. This is an actual DSC question. DSC 2019 question number 25. Yes, you get such questions also in DSC and ISI. These questions have to be scored off. Have to be scored off. Okay. In fact, selecting the correct question is the key to cracking ISI DSC entrance examinations. Okay. You have to do such questions. This is DSC 2009 question number 11. You can see that the information in the question is the same as DSC 2019 question number 25. DSC 2009 question number 11 has the same information as DSC 2019 question number 25. Okay, that is also one of the reasons why we do the past papers. Okay, try to solve this. Put your answer in the poll. I have activated the poll. Mark your answer A, B, C, or D. I don't want to see anyone saying, sir, please you do in this. So your budget is such that if you spend your entire income on two goods, X and Y, you can afford either 4 units of X and 6 units of Y. So from the DSC 2019 question number 25, what we did was we saw that either 4 units of good X and 6 units of good Y, or 12 units of good X and 2 units of good Y. So we equated the two, and when we equated the two, we found that our Px by Py was coming out to be 1 by 2. What we did was we did this. Okay. So from here I get 4Py is equal to 8Px. So Px by Py is equal to 1 by 2. Or in other words, Py is equal to 2 into Px. So once you know this, you can substitute this in any of the two equations. Suppose I substitute it in the first equation. So m is equal to 4px plus 6 into py is 2px. Okay, so what I get is 16px. So m is equal to 16px. Therefore, how much x can I buy if I spend my entire money income on x? How much x can I buy when I spend my entire money income on x will be m by px. Now what will be m by px from here? M by px from here will be equal to 16. And that's my answer. So the information in the two questions is exactly the same. DSE 2019, question number 25, and DSE 2009, question number 11. Information is the same, but the question is a little different. Here, they are asking you to calculate m by px. There, they were asking you to calculate px by py. Okay, so you can do it in any way. You can also solve the two equations simultaneously and find out the value of m by px. Okay, how do you do that? You basically eliminate py, multiply the second equation by 3. So I get 3m is equal to 36px plus 6py, and the first equation write it down as it is. Okay, and then I subtract, so I get 2m is equal to 32px, or m by px is equal to 16. So you can do it in this method also, simultaneously solving the two equations by eliminating my py. Okay, and you get your m by px. So whichever method that you want to do it with, absolutely fine. Understandable? So DSC 2009, this is part 2, question numbers 26 and 27. What I want you to do is take the information that the price of books is 50, price of movie is 10. So money income is equal to 50x plus 10y. Okay. Now you try to find out what will be the budget line in scheme 1 and scheme 2. Both will have two different budget lines. Okay, so you just have to find out what the budget line will look like. That is your task. So scheme 1, what is the scheme 1? 750 is paid as fellowship and additional 250 as book grant. Obviously the book grant money can only be spent on books, which is also mentioned here. Naturally, book grant can only be spent on books. Okay, and similarly I have a scheme 2. Scheme 2 is what? 1000 as scholarship and gets one movie free on each book they purchase. Okay, so both these are basically giving an incentive to the student to buy books and not to see a lot of movies. Okay, so please tell me what the budget line will look for scheme 1 and scheme 2. Try to explain your answer in the chat box. If any of you want to unmute and answer, please raise your hand so that I can ask you to unmute and then answer. Okay, please do it. So scheme 1, 750 is paid as fellowship and additional 250 as book grant. Okay, so basically what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to write down scheme number 1 as follows. Let's go on the whiteboard. Scheme 1, 750 scholarship, 250 book grant. This can only be spent on books, which is commodity X. So 750, which is the scholarship, will be spent on books and on movies. So how many books will I buy from the 750? I have already bought 5 books out of the book grant. Please try and understand that. Okay. Okay. In order to find out the budget line, I need to find out the income exhausting bundle of X and Y. So the book grant has to be entirely exhausted, and they can only be exhausted by spending on books. So by spending 250 on books, I will be able to buy 5 books. So I've already bought 5 books. So if X is the number of books that I buy, I will spend on X minus 5 number of books from the 750 scholarship. Am I making any sense? So this will be the budget line with X greater than equal to 5. Obviously, X cannot be less than 5 because I've already bought 5 books from the book grant. Okay. So from here, what do I get? 750 is equal to 50X minus 250 plus 10Y. So the budget line will be 1000 is equal to 50X plus 10Y with the restriction that X is greater than equal to 5. You can think about the budget line in this particular fashion. You can think about the budget line in this fashion also, that I will be spending the entire 250 on books. So my entire money income is actually 750 plus 250, that's equal to 1000. And I have to buy at least 5 books. So you can straight away write this budget line equation if it suits you, if you can understand the logic. Otherwise, you follow this budget line and then simplify and you get this ultimate budget line. Okay. So how will this look? Let's draw it. This is my X. This is my Y. Y is the number of movies. X is the number of books. So 1000 is equal to 50X plus 10Y. With X being greater than equal to 5, let's draw the budget line with blue ink. This is how the budget line will look, where it is starting from 5. What is this equal to? If X is equal to 5, Y is equal to 75. Yeah, so this is how the budget line will look. It will be hanging in the air, starting with X equal to 5 and ending, if I spend everything on books, I will be able to buy 20 books. 5 books from the book grant and 15 books from the scholarship. 750 by 50 will be 15. Okay. So total number of books that I will be able to buy will be 20, which obviously no student will do. You will watch movies, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah. So explaining the calculation again, if it was not understandable, 250 rupees has to be spent on books only. Okay. So this is already spent on books, and the remaining 750 can be spent on books or the movies. That is a choice which the student has. So my entire effective money income is 750 plus 250, which is equal to 1000. So 1000 is equal to price of a book 50 into X plus 10 into Y. Now the number of books that the student will buy cannot be less than 5 because the book grant has to be spent only on books. So at least 5 books have to be bought. So this is the restriction that I will have to impose, and this will give me the budget line. That's it. That is scheme number 1. 20 is the maximum amount of books that the student can buy. 5 books from the book grant and 15 books from the scholarship. So the student will be able to buy 20 books if the student does not spend any money on movies. Okay? So this is what we have. Scheme number 2. Scheme number 2 is what? Scheme number 2 is 1000 as scholarship and gets 1 movie free with each book they purchase. So 1000 scheme 2. 1000 scholarship with 1x get 1y free. With 1 book get a movie free. Okay, with 1 book get a movie free, and this is the scholarship amount. Okay, find out the budget line. So here we know that we get a movie free with buying a book. So 1000, my entire money will be spent on books and Supposing I watch Y movies, how many movies do I actually buy? I buy Y minus X movies. Please try and understand this. With X books, I get X movies automatically free. So, how many movies am I actually buying by paying? By paying money, I'm buying only Y minus X movies. Am I understandable? So, I have 1000 scholarship. Okay. Two ways to think about this. I will be showing you both the approaches. First approach is, think about it that 1000 is the money that I have in my pocket. I will spend 50 into X in buying the books that I want to buy. And with these X books, I will automatically get X movies absolutely free. So the money that I will have with me, I will spend on how many movies? I will spend on Y minus X movies. I will watch Y movies, but I will spend on Y minus X movies. Okay, an example of this would be as follows. I buy 5 books. So if I buy 5 books, I will spend 250 on books. With spending 250 on books, I get 5 movies also free. How much is the remaining money that I have? 750, which if I spend on movies, I will be able to buy 75 movies. But total, how many movies am I watching? I'm watching 80 movies. So I'm spending on 75 movies. What is the 75 movies that I watch minus the books that I have bought? Movies that I watch minus the books that I've bought. Okay, that will be the multiplication with the cost of a movie. Okay, so that is why I have written Y minus X. How many movies am I spending money on? मैं कितने movies पैसा दे के खरीद रहा हूं? Okay, that is Y minus X and not Y. I'm watching Y movies, but buying the tickets for Y minus X movies. Okay, so if I simplify this, I get 50x plus 10y minus 10x, or 40x plus 10y. Now, obviously, y has to be greater than equal to x. The number of movies that I watch has to be greater than equal to the number of books that I read. Because with every book, I get a movie free. If I am buying 10 books, can I watch 8 movies? Impossible. Because with 10 books, I'm already getting 10 movies free. So this is a restriction which will have to follow. The number of movies that I watch has to be greater than equal to the number of books that I read. So this is the budget line. Another way to understand this is as follows. By spending 50 rupees on a book, I'm getting a 10 rupee worth movie free. By spending 50 rupees on a book, by buying a book, I'm getting a movie free. So what is the net price of a book? The net price of a book is only 40 rupees. समझने का कोशिश करिए इसको. By spending 50 rupees on a book, I get a movie free. तो मैंने 50 rupees book पे spend किया. Answer is no. मैंने actually 40 rupees दिया book के लिए and 10 rupees of the movie. ठीक है, तो 50 rupees that I spent, effectively, if I get a movie absolutely free, the effective price of a book is only 40 rupees. 50 minus the price of a movie, 40 rupees is the effective price of a book. ठीक है? 40 rupees is the effective price of a book. So 1000, which is my scholarship, is equal to effective price of a book plus the price of a movie. And obviously, I will be seeing more movies than books because of the reasoning that I've already shared with you. Okay? Both end up at the same. You may think about the budget line in any of the two approaches. Whichever approach makes it easier for you to understand, वो approach से अपना दिमाग से सोचिए. Okay? So this is also one of my pastimes. If I have solved a problem, I usually make an attempt to find out another approach of the problem, so that a student who is not able to understand approach number one properly may be able to connect with me in a better manner by the second approach. Okay, right? So let's try and graph this on the whiteboard. 1000 is equal to 40x plus 10y. So let's use a different color. Let's use green. चलो ग्रीन यूज करते हैं, इसको ड्रॉ करते हैं. ये है x, ये है y. 1000 is equal to 40x plus 10y with y greater than equal to x. So first I draw the y is equal to x line, and this is the area where y is greater than equal to x. ठीक है? So this will be the budget line. Where is this ending? If I spend my entire money income or the scholarship on books, I get to buy 20 books, and therefore I will automatically see 20 movies. And if I spend my entire money on movies, I will be able to see 100 movies and no book. Please understand, if I don't buy any book, I will spend entirely on the movies, and hence I will be able to see 100 movies. So this shaded curly part is my budget line. Yes, so my budget line ends at 2020. My budget line ends at 2020. Okay? So this is what is the answer. Please understand that the budget set will be all values above y is equal to x line, because I can in no situation have less number of movies than the number of books. This part is not possible. Clear? Okay. Can I have a thumbs up if you are able to understand this perfectly? So DSC 2005, question number 15. The information is Miss Bijli's income is 10 and the price of widgets and electricity are 1. In order to curb Miss Bijli's electricity consumption, the electricity company decides to impose a surcharge of rupees 1 on every unit of electricity consumed in excess of 4 units. Okay, this is what you need to find out. So what information do we have? Miss Bijli's money income is 10 rupees. Okay. Price of electricity and widgets is equal to 1 till the electricity consumption is less than 4. When electricity consumption exceeds 4, the electricity company charges a surcharge of rupees 1 on the electricity consumption. So basically that means that the price of electricity becomes 2 rupees when the electricity consumption goes beyond 4 units. Okay. Okay. So electricity consumption less than equal to 4, electricity is equal to price of the electricity is equal to 1. When electricity consumption goes beyond 4, there is a surcharge of 1 rupee for the extra electricity consumption. So when E is greater than 4, price of electricity is equal to 2. Okay. So now please tell me what will be the budget line, and please draw the budget line. Do it. So 10 is equal to E plus W. That's the first part. Then what happens? If my electricity consumption goes beyond 4, so supposing my electricity consumption is say 5, okay? So the first 4 units I have already spent 4. My expenditure on the first 4 units of electricity is 4. And then my electricity consumption, whatever I do, I have to spend 2 rupees on that. And widget is as it is. So out of 10, I have already spent 4 on electricity if my electricity consumption is greater than 4, and on the amount extra I will have to pay 2 rupees for each electricity consumption. So if I consume at say 5, so on 1 unit I will be spending 2 rupees, and the widget, the price is equal to 1. So if I simplify this, this is 14 is equal to 2e plus w. This will be my budget line when e is greater than 4. Please try and understand this. Very simple to understand. Less than 4, 10 is equal to e plus w. Greater than 4, what will happen? Out of 10, I have already spent 4 on electricity consumption. Okay? So 10 is equal to 4 plus whatever electricity consumption happens in excess of 4 units. I will be spending 2 rupees on that. So 4 plus 2 into e minus 4 plus widget is as it is plus w. Okay, so 14 is equal to 2e plus w will be the budget line for e greater than 4. So I write it down. 10 is equal to e plus w and 14 is equal to 2e plus w. This will happen when e is less than equal to 4. This will happen when e is greater than 4. So if I try to draw the budget line, how will it be? E, W. Let's draw it with red ink. This is if I spend entirely on widgets. This is the point where E is equal to 4. Therefore, W is equal to 6. This most of you have got it correct. 4 comma 6 is the kink point. And beyond this, what will happen? If I put 4 comma 6, it will satisfy this budget line. Therefore, the second budget line is also starting from this point. If I spend my entire money income on electricity, I will be able to buy 7 units of electricity. This is ending at 7. Acha, 7 is it out? How 7? 10 rupees. First 4 units of electricity, I spend 4. Okay. How much is the money income remaining? 6. If I spend this entire 6 on electricity again, how much electricity can I buy? 6 by 2, because now the price is 2. Extra electricity that I can buy by the remaining 6 units is 3. So total electricity consumption, 7. Slope of the budget line here is equal to 1. Slope of the budget line here is equal to 2. Obviously, again, I am talking about in absolute terms. Absolute slope of the budget line 1, absolute slope of the budget line 2. Okay? Look at this, E minus 4. Supposing I buy any amount of electricity that is greater than 4. Okay? So on the first 4 units, I've already spent 4 rupees. On the extra electricity consumption after 4, I will be spending 2 rupees. Yeah, yes or no? So 4 plus 2 into E minus 4. If my electricity consumption is greater than 4. Plus the widget W. It is very similar to the DSC 2009 part 2 question number 26 and 27, wherein I had 250 as the book grant. Therefore, there also I was actually subtracting the amount that I was buying from the book grant. Okay? That is why I'm subtracting it here, because the price has changed after 4 units. Therefore, I get this as the budget line. Simplify it, you get this. Okay? So this is how the budget line will look. Clear? Raise your hand. Okay with everyone? Till now, I have spoken about only the means or the income and how that gives us the budget line and the budget set and the XY consumption affordability. Okay. Now it is time to look at the other aspect which will be determining the consumer behavior or the optimal consumption of X and Y. That other part is talking about the preferences of the consumer. Now, economists have noticed a few common preferences for majority of consumers, and they have actually listed them down as properties of preferences. There are a few properties which, according to economists, most of the preferences of consumers will satisfy, and they have listed it down. What are those properties? First property is the property of completeness. The property of completeness basically means that the consumer knows his or her preference perfectly. What does that mean? So, what the consumer knows is the consumer knows which bundle he or she likes over the other bundle. So, any bundle you give to the consumer, any XY bundle, 3 comma 2 and 2 comma 3, supposing this is my X, this is my Y, the consumer will be able to rank any two bundles. That is, he will be able to say, okay, I like 3 comma 2 better than a 2 comma 3, or he will say that I am indifferent between the two, or he will say that I like a 2 comma 3 better than a 3 comma 2. So the consumer exactly knows between any two bundles which bundle he will like over the other. Okay? So a consumer can always rank any two bundles that are given to him. This basically means that the consumer will never be confused that which bundle I like over the other bundle. Okay? Given any two bundles, the consumer will be absolutely sure, acha, I like the first bundle over the second, or indifferent, or the second bundle over the first bundle. In no situation will the consumer say that I cannot compare the first and the second bundle. I don't know which one I prefer. So completeness basically means that the consumer knows his preferences inside out, and he can compare any two bundles. Reflexivity, any bundle is at least as good as itself. So the consumer is basically indifferent between the two bundles if they are the same. Transitivity. Transitivity is a rationality assumption that if the consumer likes a bundle A over the bundle B and a bundle B over the bundle C, then obviously the consumer will prefer a bundle A over the bundle C. That that is what it means. That the consumer is a rational individual, and it satisfies the property of transitivity. X over Y, Y over Z, then automatically X over Z. That is the third property. Fourth property is that the economist assumes that both X and Y are good commodities. That is, the consumer will prefer more of a good than less of it. For example, if I have a bundle 1 comma 1, the consumer will prefer the bundle 2 comma 1 over 1 comma 1, and will prefer the bundle 2 comma 2 over 2 comma 1. Okay, 1 comma 1 will be inferior to 2 comma 1 when I increase my X by 1. So if I increase my X by 1, I will prefer 2 comma 1 over 1 comma 1, because more is preferred over less. That is monotonicity. More is preferred to less. This implies that given any two bundles, if one of them contains at least as much of all goods and more of one good than the other, then the first bundle will be preferred over the second bundle. So if I increase the consumption of at least one of the good, then the new bundle will be preferred over the older bundle. That is, more is preferred over less. The fifth point, strict convexity. Any combination of two equally preferred bundles will be more desirable than these bundles. So strict convexity basically means that if I am supposing indifferent between a 2,8 bundle and 8,2 bundle, any sort of combination of the two, that is any sort of a weighted average between the two. Weighted average तो समझ में आता है सबको. Any sort of a weighted average between the two where lambda is obviously lying between 0 and 1. ठीक है. It can be half, that gives me the arithmetic mean. It can be 1/3 and 2/3. It can be anything, any sort of a average between two equally preferred bundle will be preferred over these two bundles itself. So that basically means if I take this example that lambda is equal to half, so half of 2 comma 8 plus half of 8 comma 2, this basically means 5 comma 5. Can all of you see this? This basically means 5 comma 5. Okay, half of 2 plus 8 plus half of 8 plus 2. Okay, so a combination of 2 comma 8 and 8 comma 2 which are equally preferred bundles, an example of that will be 5 comma 5. What the strict convexity assumption says that this 5 comma 5 will be preferred over 2 comma 8 and 8 comma 2. That is 5 comma 5 will be preferred over 2 comma 8 which was indifferent with 8 comma 2. So any combination of 2 comma 8 and 8 comma 2 will be preferred over the two bundles itself. Okay, this basically transmutes into the statement averages are preferred over extremes. Averages are preferred over extremes. Average bundle will be preferred over an extreme bundle. So 2 comma 8, 8 comma 2 is an extreme bundle. So a 5 comma 5 will be preferred over both of them. Okay, that is what strict convexity means. Strict convexity will be better understood when we do indifference curves. Okay, so these are the desirable preference properties of a consumer. Okay, completeness, reflexivity, transitivity, monotonicity, strict convexity. These are the 5 assumptions. Now let's do one problem which is on consumers' preferences. Chalo, let's open it. This is DSC 2018, question number 36. The preference of the consumer is such that A1, A2, A3 is at least as good as B1, B2, B3 if these three inequalities hold. Okay? Now, can you please tell me which bundle will be preferred over which? 110 and 012. This is say bundle A, this is say bundle B. Which bundle will be preferred over the other bundle? Can you tell me that? Put it in the chat box. And please understand that all these three inequalities have to be satisfied for a bundle to be preferred over the other bundle. Please understand all these three inequalities have to be satisfied for a bundle to be preferred over the other bundle. Okay, that is what the question is giving me. Most of you are saying B will be preferred over A. Please try and understand, if you are saying that B is preferred over A, first bundle is 0 greater than equal to 1, is 0 plus 1 greater than equal to 1 plus 1. 0 has to be greater than first, 0 plus 1 has to be greater than 1 plus 1, 0 plus 1 plus 2 has to be greater than equal to 1 plus 1 plus 0. If these three things will all be satisfied, then only can I say that a bundle is preferred over the other bundle. So how are you saying that B is preferred over A? Because obviously 0 is not greater than equal to 1. Neither is 0 plus 1 greater than equal to 1 plus 1. Okay. Now I'm getting different responses. I'm giving you another chance. What will be preferred over what? Please tell me. Indifferent. अच्छा ठीक है. Cannot determine. Okay. A is preferred over B. अच्छा. Okay. Cannot compare. Indifferent. Okay. Please understand, all these three inequalities have to be satisfied to compare two bundles. Here we have for bundle A 1 greater than equal to 0. ठीक है. 1 plus 1 greater than equal to 0 plus 1. ठीक है. But 1 plus 1 plus 0 is less than 0 plus 1 plus 2. So first two inequalities hold, but the third inequality is not holding. In this scenario, what I will say is I cannot compare the two bundles. That is what I will be saying. As simple as that. Please don't assume that they are indifferent. If these inequalities are not satisfied, they are indifferent. Arey, why are they indifferent? Why are they indifferent? Nothing is mentioned. It is mentioned that A1, A2, A3 will be weakly preferred over B1, B2, B3 if these three inequalities are satisfied. If any one of these inequalities is not satisfied, then obviously I can't compare which bundle is better than which bundle. I can't compare. So if I'm not able to compare any two bundles, which property does it violate? It violates the property of completeness. Completeness was basically telling us that any two bundles can be compared, but not any two bundles are being compared with a preference of this type. Therefore, which of the following statements about this preference is false? Which of the following is false? Again, this is another fallacy which I see most of the students have fallen into this trap. The trap that you have fallen into is you have marked the answer which of the following is true. You have failed to see which of the following is false. Which of the following is false? Completeness. Completeness is false because all the two bundles can't be compared. Any two bundles cannot be compared. Two bundles can only be compared if these three inequalities will satisfy. So answer is it is complete. Please understand it will be transitive. If I increase any one bundle, if I increase any one good in a bundle, the new bundle will be preferred. It will be monotonic and it is continuous because it is monotonic. Okay. It is complete is false. That is the answer. So after the economists shared which are the properties that are important for the preferences of a consumer, the economists went to a mathematician to put this in numbers, that the preferences need to be put into a numerical value. That is why the economists approached mathematicians and the mathematicians gave them an answer that use a utility function which will satisfy all these four properties, all these five properties. Okay. So the mathematicians told the economists that these five important properties will be satisfied by something called a utility function. Okay. Now the approach of a utility function was categorized into two parts. One part was the cardinal approach, where the economists attached a number to each of the utility. So supposing utility of consuming bundle 1 comma 2 was attached with a utility of 10 and a utility of 2 comma 1 was attached with a utility of 13. So the economist would basically point out that 2 comma 1 is 30% more preferred over the bundle 1 comma 2, because 2 comma 1 was giving me a utility of 13 and 1 comma 2 was giving me a utility of 10. So a bundle 2 comma 1 will be 30 times more, sorry, 30% more preferred over 1 comma 2. Why 30% more? Because 10 into 130% is equal to 13, right? Okay, so the cardinal approach basically says that the utility value is measured in terms of utils, and these values have relevance, that the bundle will be 30% better than the other bundle, so on and so forth, right? But it is not at all realistic to say that I like a Coke exactly 21.29% more than an ice cream. Do you ever say this? That I like a Coke exactly 21.29% over an ice cream? Can you ever make a statement like this? Your friends will say you find another friend if you start making a statement like this. Okay. So the cardinal approach, according to economists, is not at all a realistic one, because you never say this, that I like a bundle exactly 21.29% over the other bundle. Okay. Which brings us to the other approach. The cardinal approach was where the utility was being measured in terms of utils, and these values had a relevance. The economist, however, found this to be not a very realistic approach, and hence came up with an approach which we will be following unless otherwise specified. So all the utility functions that we will be solving, we will assume that they follow not the cardinal approach, but the ordinal approach. Now, what is the ordinal approach? The ordinal approach simply says that I don't care about the exact value of the utility, but I only care about which bundle is giving me a higher utility. So the ordinal approach only associates itself in ordering all bundles possible. Okay. Ordering all the bundles that are possible. Now, ordering all the bundles that are possible means that by this example, 2 comma 1 will be preferred over a 1 comma 2. And if utility of 1 comma 1 is say 8, that means that 1 comma 2 will be preferred over a 1 comma 1. The exact values are not important. Only I care about acha 2 comma 1 was giving me a higher utility than 1 comma 2. Therefore, 2 comma 1 will be preferred over 1 comma 2. 1 comma 2 will be preferred over a 1 comma 1. Okay. So only the ordering of all the bundles is important. The absolute value of the utilities are not important. That is the ordinal approach. So by the ordinal approach, the economists are able to rank all the bundles. Okay. Right. So the cardinal approach is where I can exactly say that I like a bundle exactly 25.27% more than the other, which is not very realistic. So I'll call this an unrealistic approach. And hence the economists turn to the ordinal approach, where the utility function is only used to rank the bundles. Okay, only the ranking is important. The absolute value of the utility is not important. This brings us to a very, very important property. This brings us to a very, very important property, and that property is monotonic transformation of the utility function. Now, what do I mean by this? What is monotonic transformation of a utility function? Now, let me explain this. Now, we are able to find out our x and y optimum when the budget line interacts with the preference of the consumer, which is measured by the utility function. So the utility function interacts with the budget line in a way that I will maximize my utility subject to the XY bundles that are affordable to me. Okay? That is how I find out my optimal X and Y. So I maximize the utility subject to the budget line. Okay? Now, since utility is only concerned about the orders, if I make a transformation of the utility function under question, so supposing I consider a transformation like this, a g function of the utility function gives me another function, say h. Okay, if h 2 comma 1 is greater than h 1 comma 2 is greater than h 1 comma 1, when u2 comma 1 is greater than u1 comma 2 is greater than u1 comma 1. What I mean by this is, if utility of A is better than a utility of B is better than a utility of C, and a transformation of this utility function gives me a new function, say h, and h also follows the same ranking or the same ordering. If h also follows the same ranking or the same ordering, it means that h is a monotonic transformation of u. Okay? Let me give you an example. An example would be something like this. Utility is equal to, say, x plus y. I have h is equal to root over x plus y. Okay? So I know that 1 plus 3 will be greater than 2 plus 1. This basically means that the bundle 1 comma 3 will be preferred over the bundle 2 comma 1. Okay? Because this is 4, this is equal to 3. Okay? Root over 4 is also greater than root over 3. Therefore, what ranking I get with an x plus y will be the same ranking that I will get by root over x plus y. The ranking of the bundle will not change. What was preferred in x plus y will also be preferred in root over x plus y. So if I consider any monotonic transformation of the utility function, which leaves the ranking of all the bundles unchanged, that means that my optimal x star y star will be the same whether I consider a u with the budget line or I consider an h with the budget line, where h is a monotonic transformation of the utility function. Try and understand this. Let me explain it once more. So if I want to find out my optimal x and y with a budget line and a utility function, I find out another function of the utility function which leaves the ranking of all the bundles unchanged. Whichever bundle was preferred in the utility function that we had earlier is the same ordering is happening with a new function which is h. Okay? The ranking is the same. If I was liking an ice cream over a Coke with my utility function as u, I will yet like an ice cream over a Coke with the new monotonic transformation function of h. रैंकिंग सेम है. अगर बंडल ए बी से बेटर था यू में, देन ए बी से बेटर है एच में भी. That is what we mean by a monotonic transformation. Okay, an example of a monotonic transformation is root over. An example will be e to the power. An example would be log of the function. An example would be multiply by a constant where a is positive. An example would be addition or subtraction by a constant. These are all examples of monotonic transformations which will leave the ranking of all the bundles unchanged. Okay? So whether I consider U or I consider H, my optimal X star Y star will be the same. Kyunki if under U, X star Y star was greater than all other XY affordable, under H, X star Y star will again be best bundle over all other bundles affordable. क्योंकि ranking same है, तो X star Y star will be the same. ठीक है? Now why is this important? ये मैं आपको क्यों पढ़ा रहा हूं? ये important है क्योंकि बहुत बार आप एक यूटिलिटी फंक्शन देखेंगे which will look like this. ठीक है? Now working with this utility function will not be very simple. But if I know that this is x plus y square, I can take a monotonic transformation and make it into a function like this. Now, working with a simple utility function of only x plus y is more easier than working with a utility function of x plus y whole square. That is exactly why I said that working with a monotonic transformation is sometimes more easier. तो ये आपको फेस करना पड़ेगा in the utility functions which you see in ISI DSE. Many times they will be giving you a utility function which will be very complicated. Like for example, e to the power x square plus y square. ऐसा utility function आपको दे दिया. Monotonic transformation निकाल लिया x square plus y square. Now it is easier to work with this than if you want to work with e to the power of x square plus y square. Monotonic transformation किया, इसके साथ में काम किया. ठीक है? So that is where monotonic transformations come to your rescue to solve x and y optimal quantities when I know that the utility function is ordinal. ठीक है? So this monotonic transformation can only be used when I have an ordinal utility function. Cardinal utility function में काम नहीं करेगा क्योंकि the value itself will change in the cardinal. Ordinal में values are not important. Only the ranking of the bundle is important. तो ordinal में ये चलेगा, cardinal में नहीं चलेगा. Understandable? ठीक है? Monotonic transformation should be understandable. It will be better understood once we do a few more examples, which we leave it for the next class. ठीक है?